Hey, good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We have an hour packed with knowledge and insights that you won't find anywhere else. My name is Christopher Carson, coming to you from Portland, Oregon, USA, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for an e-commerce agency called Above the Fray. I'll be your moderator today for an all-star panel of experts who will help us master the complexities and nuances of core web vitals and accessibility and help us avoid common mistakes that are costing us customers, conversions, exposing us to all sorts of unnecessary risk. Very exciting stuff. Before I introduce the panel, just a couple of housekeeping notes. We'll be sharing the recording from this session after the event, so please keep an eye out for that. Share it with your friends and family, whoever you feel would get some value out of it. We will be reviewing and responding to questions throughout the session as we are able, so please don't be shy. Submit those questions as we go. We'll get to them ad hoc, or we'll try to get to them as best we can during the planned Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Maybe just to let us know you're awake and engaged, jump in the chat there and tell us where you're joining us from and your time zone. Okay, I'm very excited. As you can probably tell, I've been looking forward to this panel all week. I have a few ATF partners here that absolutely have a ton of confidence and respect in and for. So without further ado, today I'm joined by Hyvä, RumVision, Amasty, and along with that, we have Above the Fray Zone Engineering Manager, Andra Lungu. Welcome, panel. I'm going to pass it over to you for a round of introductions. Andra, hello. Let's start with you.
So first of all, we have a message in the chat that you should check because they said they can't access the chat. And yes, thank you. So I'm Andra Lungu, engineering manager at ATF, and I spent over 15 years working and building online shops, debugging endless lines of code, and leading teams throughout the world in this wonderful chaos of e-commerce development. I worked with Magento for so long that I think I could dream in PHP and JavaScript. But today I promise to spare you the nightmares of replatforming or upgrades and talk about some interesting topics like core web vitals and accessibility. Thank you. Sanne, next.
Sure. So my name is Sanne Bolkenstein. I'm the commercial director for Hyvä, the leading Magento 2 front-end solution, so working for Magento and Adobe Commerce. And I've been working in the e-commerce space for decades now. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here today. So I will pass it on to you.
Hi, I believe it's my turn, yeah. Hi, my name is Sergej, and I'm CEO of Amasty, the leading extension provider in Magento world. We are leader in a number of Hyvä compatible extensions, Hyvä checkout compatible extensions, and accessible extensions. So I believe that's it.
Yeah, that leaves me then. I'm Karlijn Löwik. I'm the CEO and co-founder of RumVision. We are a real user monitoring solution, which helps you monitor core web vitals, which is why I was invited, as well as being an official partner with Above the Fray and with Hyvä. So I was asked to share some lights on what are the core web vitals and how can you measure and improve them.
All right. Thank you very much for the intros, everyone. Pardon me. Topic of core web vitals and web vital metrics and accessibility, such an important topic. Karlijn, I'll start with a question for you. Why do user experience and accessibility matter?
Yeah, so the thing is, Core Web Vitals and accessibility, why do they matter? Well, it's really about focusing on your real people for your e-commerce sites, because, well, we all know it works fine on my computer, says, well, every developer in the world. However, that computer is not the one who will be buying things from your web shop, and neither will a robot, but real people will. And here's the thing with real people. All will have different backgrounds and circumstances on which they visit your shop. They might live in Maryland, for instance, and be on a laptop. Then they have the fastest internet in the USA. Or they might live in California and actually have the slowest. If anyone needs citation on that, I have it. Their phone might be the latest iPhone. It could also be a low-end Android device that's been passed down by two generations. All these factors will majorly affect how they can interact with your site to add things to cart, for instance. Those are site speed metrics, but they might also have a disability like poor eyesight and have to zoom in on the fonts of the site like a lot of seniors do. Or color blindness together with 300 million other people where they are unable to differentiate between green and blue, which your site might lose a lot of, thus making it unreadable. But the good news is in this day and age, we are able to make sure those real users actually get the best experience. By using Core Web Vitals and accessibility guidelines, you can make sure that your real audience is happy to use your site. And you can use easy to adapt web solutions to, well, literally get up to speed.
All right. That's great information, Karlijn.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the statistics.
Yeah, so the statistics actually don't lie. I mean, look at this. 8% more sales by making the LCP, which is loading time faster. 42% more revenue. Or, and the metric I always find interesting as well, 62% of visitors that might not come back if they have a bad experience on mobile. That's a lot of people. The same as a lot less bounce. But SEO as well. It's actually a ranking factor. And also organic views go up. So there are many reasons why you would want to focus on Core Web Vitals.
Yeah, those are crazy stats. I mean, we have so many conversations with clients about incremental sales growth. I think these stats would kind of blow some of their minds. Thank you. Now that we have that context laid out, let's dive into some of this Q&A. Question is for Andra. What are Core Web Vitals?
So Core Web Vitals are an initiative by Google to promote better web performance and experience and user experience. It measures how your real visitor experience your site with browsers like Chrome and Edge. When your site passes Core Web Vitals, there's a lot of benefits. You get more traffic, conversion are improved, it's part of your SEO rankings, it promotes brand loyalty and organic search. And last but not last, it's even better for sustainability. When your site fails Core Web Vitals, it means that your real users experience a website that was slow or annoying. And research actually proved that a slow loading website is so annoying that it actually raises the blood pressure of people by up to 20%. That's health hazard, right? No one wants that.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that. The Zoom troubles I had this morning. Raising my blood pressure. Everybody witnessed that. So why are 3 Core Web Vitals? What are they and what do they mean? Karlijn.
Yeah, so we have 3 Core Web Vitals and they measure 3 different things in the user experience. And they've actually all have 3-letter abbreviations because, trust me, the PageSpeed community loves those. So let's go through them. It's important to remember, by the way, that it's measured on the 75th percentile. So this means that 75% of your users had this experience or better. also means that 25% actually had a worse experience than this. So the LCP is the largest contentful paint, and it measures the loading performance, or literally the site speed. How long does it take in seconds for the page most prominent content? And this is usually the hero image or the hero video to appear after the page has begun loading. The second one is actually the newest one, and it measures interactivity, the interaction to next paint. And what that means is it measures the slowest interaction that a user has when they were doing an interaction, like opening the hamburger menu or add to carts. And the last one is the cumulative layout shift, which measures the visual stability. So how much did the page shift around when it was loading something that I think we've all had in our lives, when you started reading something, or worse yet, you started to click on something and suddenly something else came instead. That's a cumulative layout shift, and those are very annoying to users. So these are the 3 core web vitals that Google measures, and each metric assesses, well, I said, the different aspect of the user experience. Because despite what people often think, simply measuring loading speed is insufficient to measure that good experience. For instance, if the first loading image of the page was fast, but then it shifted around because an ad appeared, or the menu is unable to interact with it, that is all annoying. And Google actually recommends a threshold for each metric. And when you're looking at these metrics, please keep in mind that lower numbers are better. And what these 3 metrics are called are field data, because they are actually measured on your real website with your real users.
So that's the thing. Is this a question for you, Sanne? What about the last page speed score? Is that different?
Yeah, it's different. It's sometimes can be a bit confusing, like how many different terms you actually have to indicate a website's performance. Because a lot of people know about the Lighthouse score and that little green circle that everybody loves so much. And it's not to say that that's not a good indicator, because it is. But what that is doing is actually measuring lab data. So that is in a simulated environment and not like real user experience like Karlijn just described, which is called field data. So Lighthouse is more a developer's tool to see like how performant the software is that you're using. So for instance, at Hyvä, we're very much focused on performance. So Hyvä will give you an out-of-the-box Lighthouse score of 100, which is unparalleled, by the way. So there's no other Magento front-end solution that will give you that. The default front-end that comes with Magento called Luma will only give you 48. But sadly, there's still a lot of Hyvä sites that, despite this 100 Lighthouse score, still fail core web vitals. And this has a lot to do with the implementation of third-party modules and extra features and stuff like that. So unfortunately, while Lighthouse score is a good indicator of a starting point, it doesn't say something about what your real users are actually experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting distinction. So these are great insights to be aware of and to monitor. Karlijn, what tools do you recommend for measuring for web vitals?
I think when people start to talk about measuring performance, the most easy way to have a look at it is actually opening Google PageSpeed Insights, which I think everyone that ever talked about performance saw. And that actually offers you 2 insights for the price of 1. So the first thing that you see, and you need to have enough data for it to actually see it, are those core web vitals. So if you have about 400 visitors on a Chrome device per month, you will get those, and those are the real users data. So you also very easily see, hey, I passed or I failed core web vitals. downside to it, by the way, is that it's always 28 days delayed. Or so if you want to develop and see if something helped quickly, that's a bit of a downside. And that also offers you a lighthouse score underneath it. Google recommends that if you have core web vitals, please look at those and not at the lighthouse score. Another quite famous one is the Google Search Console, which uses the same data set as that the core web vitals do. So you'll get a notification there saying, hey, look, you are no longer passing core web vitals due to an IMP issue on your side there. Then I still say, look at PageSpeed Insight, or better yet, start to look at RUM, because the upside of a RUM is that it's actually implemented on your own site. So it's a very small JavaScript snippet on your own site that gets you a deep dive into the information that you need in real time to discover what's been happening in those core web vitals and literally in your code and to your real users. So those are 3 solutions to check, core web vitals.
And if I can just add to that, part of the reason why we, as Hyvä, are partnering with RumVision is precisely this, because you get real-time insights in what your actual users are experiencing, and you have a very detailed overview, so what you need to do in order to improve it. And as Karlijn showed before, like we all know that performance is key for conversion rates. It's so important. So we're all working really hard to make our solutions like super fast. But then it's still up to like how the implementation goes, and that's why it's great to have monitoring tools like RumVision to make sure that you are continuously checking your website, and it's not just a one-time thing, but you can do that continuously, and thereby making sure that you have the highest conversion rates possible in your website.
Thank you. Yeah, and actually also get alerted to it. So if it suddenly starts to fail, you get an email and you're like, oh no, and then you can fix something in like an hour instead of waiting 28 days to see those core web vitals go down.
Yeah, I can go sign on that. It's a fantastic solution. Thank you for all that information. Next question is for Andra. What are some of the common pitfalls that make sites?
Well, for existing website, it's a bit like the Sorcerer Apprentice story. I don't know if everyone knows that old tale. The young apprentice is left alone with a request to fill the cauldron with water, but decides to use a magic spell to bring the broom to life and carry the bucket of water for him. You may be asking yourself at this point what this has to do with e-commerce, but I'm getting there, I promise. The young apprentice realized rather quickly that he doesn't know how to stop a broom. So he takes an axe to it, and each piece of broom turns actually into a whole other new broom that fetches water and alternately floods the place. E-commerce websites can quickly end up exactly like that. When you make a change that you think will help, it can have unforeseen consequences that actually makes things worse. Imagine, for example, an online store selling custom art supplies. And a merchant, let's call him Art, we use a lot of fantasy there, wants to sell more online, of course. So he begins adding things to the website that he thinks will help the customer make a purchase decision. So he starts adding rich images and video tutorials and a chatbot and a virtual reality and so on. His goal is to make the site more attractive and engaging, but each feature he added actually made the site slower and less responsive. Engagement rates decline and conversion rates take a cliff dive. The most common things we see that drag down the scores are the basic is unoptimized images, but also excessive or inefficient third-party scripts, CSS and JavaScript issues, but can be a number of things like A/B testing, excessive of it, or uncontrolled content added through Google Tag Manager, which is an amazing tool, but if it goes on not control without the people that doesn't know how to use it, you can add content to your website that you don't want to add because it's not under your control. It comes from some other website that you don't even know what it's putting there. And heat maps and many, many others.
Yes, heat maps heat maps. Is that enough? Okay, here's a question for you to answer. How can, e-commerce businesses are consistently meeting Core Web Vitals standards, maintaining that, ever important high quality user experience? And can you share some practical tips? Sanne, maybe you can kick us off.
Yeah, sure. So this is a bit preaching to the choir, but I would say start with a good foundation. So again, like with Hyvä, we're completely focused on performance. We're extremely lightweight and we hardly use any JavaScript. So that makes us out of the box super performant. And again, like giving you a Lighthouse score of 100. And then after that, it's up to you to mess that up.
Yeah, the case is that almost nobody is using Magenta, even with Hyvä out of the box. Usually people are looking for unique features to provide a specific experience to their clients. And here where it starts, what Andra already explained, it's always a compromise between every new feature, every new extension, and your performance. And that's why with every Magenta release, with every feature release, Amasty checks extensions in terms of performance, not just how it works with vanilla Magenta without any load, but how it behaves under the load, how it works in terms of Google Core Web Vitals, for example, cumulative shifts, and so on. So performance is the thing that it's not possible to fix once and enjoy forever. With every new feature, you need to start from scratch and make all the tests once again, just to make sure you're still on the safe side, even if it looks like you haven't changed anything drastic.
And of course, it counts also partnering with a good agencies that leverages best practices and that has a process in place to monitor us. Karlijn was explaining before, your site, every change you make, you don't lose in your Core Web Vitals reports.
Yeah, so and to take that, ongoing and continuous monitoring, because you can't fix what you can't measure, but actually you can save so much time by knowing what is impacting your real users instead of just chasing everything that you see in a Lighthouse report. So it's both validation that you are working on things that impact your real users, but also saving so much developer time in trying to fix issues that are not an issue at all.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at a real world example. Andra, I think you have one you can share with, right?
Yes. So Darby Dental is a leading distributor of dental supplies and equipment as per name. And it's actually a shared client of ours. Their current website, built on an aging framework, had become increasingly difficult to maintain with evolving web security standards and did not support future scaling needs. Darby Dental chose to migrate to Adobe for its ability to support very unique use cases and proprietary backup processes on a modern, stable platform. Their goal was to maintain the current high levels of customer satisfaction and site functionality while improving Core Web Vitals scores and overall site performance, and ensure that the platform can scale and adapt for future needs. For the implementation, of course, we leverage Hyvä team for the lightweight high-performance foundation, and then use development best practices to ensure that the out-of-the-box performance was maintained. We also carefully selected third-party extension like Amasty Custom Form, Amasty Invisible Captcha, and Amasty Product and Attachment, among others, that we were sure were tested for Core Web Vitals and page speed impact. And this allows us to be sure that we will not impact the new website performance. But probably Sergej here can even detail a bit more how they can do that.
Yeah, I believe I need to mention one more extension that normally impacts your performance more drastically than any other. It's navigation. And here our improved layer navigation was selected. And for example, very small example how it can impact your CLS score. So cumulative shift. For example, you have subcategories. Normally, every website has subcategories, and you would like to apply filters. Once you apply filters, it could cause cumulative shift in your subcategory. We have narrowed down this case and fixed it, and like now it behaves normally. It's like just one of the cases we found, and like at the moment, if I'm not mistaken, our extension has more than 20 releases that contain specific performance improvements. And we're continuously working on it from Magento release to release with new Hyvä compatibilities and possibilities to another.
Thank you. The new website, it's yet to be launched, but we can share you a preview of the results of lab data information to be reminded that it's not the same as field data as we were discussing at the beginning. So in terms of largest contentful paint, we had an improvement from 18 seconds 0.2 to 2.2 seconds and an overall 88% improvement. The cumulative layer shift has an 100% improvement. And here to be mentioned, this is not exactly interaction to next paint, but it's actually total blocking time, which is the proxy field data, lab data for the interaction to next paint. And it improved from 5,620 milliseconds to 340 milliseconds and a 95% improvement. Derby Dental commitment to optimize their site core web vitals not only improve their performance metrics, but we actually expect that will be a significantly enhance of user satisfaction and as such a business outcome. We can't share these results, of course, yet since we are not live, but do expect a full case study early next year where we will publish these results.
Yeah, the leading indicators are so exciting. I think it's a great example of the teams working on this project, identifying these metrics as strategic priorities and leveraging best of breed purpose-built technology to accomplish these objectives. Thank you, Andra. So I think that segues nicely into the counter topic here, if you will, of accessibility. So Sanne, maybe you can kick us off talking a little bit about this important subject. Why is website accessibility important, and how does it impact user experience and business success ultimately?
Yeah, so it's important for three reasons. It's legal, ethical, and economic. The legal reason is that there's a lot of legislation already in place, for instance, in the States, but also in the UK. And as of June next year, also in the entirety of the EU, that forces websites to be accessible to different users with different challenges. So if you are not compliant, you're actually not compliant with the law, and so you might be facing fines, etc. So that's a very important first reason to make sure that your website is accessible. The second one is that there's an ethical reason. If you open up your website to different users with different challenges, that would make you and your brand actually look good, and that promoting inclusivity would again have a positive connotation with your brand. So again, like that's also a reason to do it, of course. And then the third reason is an economic reason, and that's that there's this whole customer segment that with purchasing power that currently doesn't have access to your website or is not unable to make purchases through your website. So if you make sure that your website accommodates those customers, you actually open up a whole new potential customer base, and thereby, enlarging your potential revenue. And so those are customers that you would otherwise not have been able to serve. So those are the three reasons why you should think about accessibility.
Oh, thank you. Great information once again. Go ahead. Sorry, maybe that was just some feedback I was getting. Next question here on this topic for Sergej. What are the standards and guidelines for web accessibility, and can you give some examples of those?
Yeah, I believe we need to mention two of the most widely threats or standards. It's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also known as abbreviation WCAG, and regulations like from Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as ADA. So they are basically regulate how we would like to treat our websites, and like there are also European Union Web Accessibility Directive, and they usually provide us guidance how we're going to make sure that our websites are accessible. Usually when we are talking about accessibility, like people think and tend to think about like special group of people that have specific disabilities. But the case is that almost every of us, time to time, from let's say one age to another age, tends to get specific disabilities and need accessible websites. For example, I stare in my screen almost every day for 8 hours. It doesn't make my site better. Some people are colorblind. Some people like due to specific conditions are not able to perceive specific colors or images or fonts very good. So basically the first thing is how you can perceive what is depicted on your site. We are talking about images, colors, captions for the videos, captions for images, alt text that you can use there to make sure that if a person is not able to see specific image, for example, he can understand what's happening there based on the description. Another thing is like operatable. For example, I've just broken my arm. I'm not able to manipulate my mouse anymore. What should I do? Can I navigate your website just using the keyboard, or it's not possible? Another thing that when you're switching to this mode, when you just see the text description and you're operating with the keyboard, is your structure of the website is understandable. So can I intuitively navigate it and normally predict what should happen when I navigate to the left, down, and so on. And another thing is about robustness, how your content align with this website structure can be used using in such technologies as, for example, screen reader. So taking all these together makes your website accessible, and like what we just discussed, it's a normal patterns of accessibility that you should be aware of.
Thank you very much for that, Sergey. The next question here is for you, Sanne. What are the risks if you're not in compliance? Touched on that a little before, but
yeah. Well, the risk is, of course, as I said, if you're not compliant with the law, you'll be facing penalties and fines or expensive settlements and lawsuits that you're not exactly waiting for. And another risk that you have is that the impact of offering a poor user experience or customer experience can negatively affect your SEO, bounce rates, and conversions. But what a lot of people are also not realizing is that it can also impact your current customer base, because the US population is aging rapidly. In 2022, 85 million Americans were 65 or older, and this number will rise to 82 million by 2050. So while millennials are still the largest online shopping group, adults of 45 and over now account for 44% of online purchases. And with age also, unfortunately, comes losing things like proper eyesight and stuff like that. So being compliant with disability standards doesn't only allow you to open up a new customer segment, but it's also taking care, so to say, of your current customer segment. And ignoring accessibility risks alienating this growing segment of your customer base.
Yeah, I mean, I'm due for an eye check myself. I just turned 44 last month, so
You wouldn't say.
I'm almost at 45 plus. Yeah. So, question for you, Sergej. What are some ways that e-commerce stores can effectively ensure they're in compliance with ADA standards and provide a good experience for all?
Yeah, the case is very similar to performance. Accessibility is a thing that you're not able to do once and for all time. With every change in your code, you need to make sure that it's still accessible. The same is equivalent to your content. If you're doing specific changes in your content, you also need to make sure that they're accessible. So basically, there are standards, and normally what we are doing, we are running our extensions checks with every release. For example, AA standard, it means that you should run around 50 checks. Normally, it takes from several hours till 40 hours of work to make sure it's accessible. And we released several articles about it. And I believe the main thing to be accessible and compliant with accessibility is to make sure you're doing it in a consistent, let's say, basis. It's normal drill on every release.
Totally true. Like Sergej mentioned, indeed, it's not to be in compliance. It's not a one and done thing. With every change you make, as it was happening for Core Web Vitals, it happens for compliance. You can always potentially introduce something that puts you out of compliance. That's why we recommend a quarterly accessibility audit to keep on top of any issues that might pop up. And in relation to also the question, what tools do you recommend to run an assessment for ADA? I know there are tools there, but my advice would be to actually go to companies that offer these services, because they are trained and they have a knowledge that the tools don't cover fully. So a tool will only cover a part of these requirements, but there are requirements that can be covered by a tool. So we definitely suggest to put yourself in the hands of someone that has the knowledge and experience.
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on some of the questions we've seen in the Q&A there too. So thank you. So that's great information today, everyone. I think there's a lot of actionable stuff presented here. How about we hear, before we jump into some of that Q&A, how about we hear from each of you one more time with a closing takeaway for the audience to think about. Karlijn, can we start with you?
Yeah, so I say keep in mind that you're building a site for real users in the real world, and it's not just having a fast or functional site on a lab. Make sure that those real users actually can buy things from your real site.
Yeah, what I can add here, as I already said, that like performance or accessibility are things that that require your attention on every release, on every code change, and like you need to make it part of your routine, part of your normal pipelines on pre-release stage. And make sure that you are using very effective tools like Amasty extensions and Hyvä, just to make your effort load a little bit lower. And don't make sure that you are doing everything on your own every time.
Yeah, and I would say Core Web Vitals and ADA compliance aren't just about checking boxes and avoiding penalties. It's about opening up your business to a growing audience so you can better serve your customers and sell more.
Indeed, and I know this stuff can seem daunting because it doesn't have to be. Leverage the right tools, partner with a good agency, and the effort to create a great user experience does pay off in increased sales. And I know it's scary, the investment that it requires, both ADA compliance and Core Web Vitals, but it's actually money that pays off, and not doing it, it makes you lose money. So you think you're maybe avoiding some expense, but you're actually losing money by not doing it. I see one question that maybe I can take. What are some common issues with Google Tag Manager that impact Core Web Vitals? And maybe also Caitlin can answer this one. And things like ad pixels, something we need to worry about. So my experience that the biggest issue you have when there's JavaScript that is not optimized, that is being loaded on your website, so it has an issue on your performance. And it also sometimes can create issues on your website, like not being able to correctly load. I've seen hundreds of websites that have errors in the JavaScript because of a third-party JavaScript that was loaded through Google Tag Manager.
Yeah, so that's also kind of what I mean. There are two questions here, I believe. Common issues with Google Tag Manager is very often that developers actually just have no idea what's actually been added to their sites that's making it slow. And for instance, something that we already mentioned, like a heat map that's on 100% on every page, or an A/B test, but ad pixels as well. I mean, if you're in e-commerce, I totally understand that you want to track ads. But we do see real impact on from TikTok, for instance, on IMP. And one of the things that you actually can do is yield them, get them away from what your user experience in the moment, and send them later. There are more actionable tips like that that I'd be happy to tell anyone who just sends me a private message afterwards.
Yeah,
I see there's also... Sorry.
Yeah. Please go.
No, I think there's a question for me, but if you want to go into this.
I would like to add something on Google Analytics part, and what we've seen from our experience working with like different analytics and pixels. We have like a bunch of them, and basically the case is that there is no just one way of implementation. There are lots of ways how you can implement the same analytics into your website. And sometimes the most straightforward is the most, let's say, resources consuming. And there are, as already Karlijn mentioned, just to capture everything what you've got from the users real time, it's pretty obvious and you can make it easily, but it's going to impact your performance. You can make it asynchronously. It requires more development, more skills from developer, but it brings better results to your website. So before you implement any specific code extension, make sure that it's done by professionals and they understand what they're doing.
And also that you measure its impact for your real users is also so important. Because sometimes you think it's going to be hugely impactful and it turns out it's not at all.
Yeah.
I see a question here from Robert Krantz. We did a Hyvä upgrade this year and speed improvement was minimal. How can we determine if Hyvä was installed correctly? Our agency had only done one Hyvä install prior to us. So thank you for notifying us about it. As I said, yeah, unfortunately, there's still a lot of Hyvä sites that don't pass Core Web Vitals. And that has to do with the way that third-party modules and features are integrated. So the way to check this is we have quite extensive documentation on our website, docs.hyvä.io, where we have a whole section dedicated to performance and best practices, so you can use those. But I would also be very happy to let someone from my team take a look at your sites and see if we see anything that can be done differently to make sure that your performance is actually better. So if you send me an email, I think my contact is at the end of this presentation, but it's just Sanne@hyvä.io. And yeah, tell me the name of your website, and I'll be happy to have one of our developers take a look and see if we can come up with some recommendations.
Yeah, and I think I can actually take the last question I see in the Q&A right now, which is, could you talk a little about how Core Web Vitals impacts SEO? It's actually been said by the Google team that it is part of a ranking signal that if you pass Core Web Vitals, that you'll get an SEO boost. Although I should say, just out of complete fairness, that it mainly impacts if you and your competitor have equal helpful content and equal credibility on SEO, then the site that passes Core Web Vitals will get the boost. But more importantly, what we actually see is that Google very much wants to promote a good experience, and that actually, just aside from Core Web Vitals, if a site loads fast, if people return to it, if it's nice to browse and easy to read, or if they click an ad, for instance, and that ad actually proves that someone stays around, all those things also give signals to Google that say, hey, look, this user is happy with this site. I should recommend this site more often. Does that answer the question, Adriaan?
We don't know.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
I also see a question which still recommend to run an assessment for ADA. There's actually lots of different tools available, but I would recommend going to the ADA National Network. It's actually a government-supported national organization specifically for this Americans with Disabilities Act, and there you can find some recommendations.
Yeah, and here I can add that, as Andra already mentioned, there are a lot of checklists, and you need like just go from section to section to understand how it works. Do you have objects and so on? And there is one tool I can mention. I believe it's called it named X DevTools, Web Accessibility Testing, the Google Chrome extension plugin. It helps a little bit to catch accessibility defects like on the development level. So you can develop something while you're like and you're catching how my friend says, with accessibility in your mind. Then it's easier to move forward and catch different kind of issues. But as Andra mentioned, it doesn't catch every issue with accessibility. It's just one part of the situation.
In the end, it's something that we all need to get trained in. That's the only way to make it sustainable economically. You can't wait for someone to tell you, hey, you did this wrong. You need to learn how to do it right in the first place. And that's the most economical way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I can say firsthand, talking with a lot of customers out there, that it is, awareness has grown quite a bit on it just in the last couple of years. We're talking about it with customers all the time. So that's an encouraging trend, I think. Well, thank you everyone for this great information. I think it just underscores, this is a complex set of topics, and it's so nice to have a panel of absolute experts on this. Thank you very much for joining us for this panel, and thank you attendees for your interest and for your attendance today and the engagement throughout. The recording, as I said, will be sent out to everyone after this event. And if you have any follow-up questions about these topics, or something that kind of falls into the wheelhouse of anyone here on this panel, please reach out to us through the various different channels, LinkedIn, emails for everyone here. When we send out the recording, be really excited to get in touch with folks to talk about this more and go through additional questions deeper with you all. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
For
thanks,
organizing it.
And thank you, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for hosting us.
My pleasure. My pleasure, guys. All right, I'll hang out here, see if any additional questions come in, but everybody should go. And look forward to seeing you on our next event.
Definitely. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. You as well.
Yeah.